This is the Bigger Than Me podcast. Here's your host, Aaron B.
My guest today is a rapper from Halifax, Nova Scotia. In his music, he talks about overcoming adversity, looking at it like it's an opportunity, being strong when the days are dark, and reaching that full potential that I believe everybody has. My guest today is Quake Matthews. Quake Matthews, it's such a pleasure to sit down with you today. I'm a huge fan of your music. I can't wait to dive into some of the incredible songs that you've made. Would you mind introducing yourself for people who may not know you?
Quake Matthews, hip-hop artist and producer out of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Been doing this thing a long time. First album dropped in 2010. New album is dropping later this month, so I'm still going strong and grateful to be here.
Let's go. That's so exciting. Can you talk a little bit to start about coming from Halifax, Nova Scotia? It comes out in your music. You share. You're very proud to come from there. I'm just curious as to what that means to you.
I mean, it means everything to come from Halifax. I've traveled all around this country, done multiple tours around the country, and there really is no place like Nova Scotia. I feel like we're a special breed down here, and the vibe is unlike anywhere else you're going to go in Canada. And I don't think I'm being biased. I think it honestly is a fact. I don't know what it is, if it's the East Coast air or if it's the rich multicultural history or what it is. But the vibes are immaculate here, and definitely proud to be from here.
You got started on that battle rap scene, and I'm just curious as to how you got into this industry and how that impacted you.
Yeah, so that was the first thing I kind of started doing to make a name for myself was battle rapping in clubs. And I was like 14, 15 years old. And I used to have to get a permission slip signed by my parents from the Liquor Commission, like the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission, to ensure that I was going to go in there and wait in the kitchen of the club and then leave immediately after performance and consume absolutely zero alcoholic beverages. And, you know, we had to my parents had to sign off and be 100% liable because they're strict. You know, if the liquor inspector comes in and sees an underage kid in there, they could lose their license. And so there's a lot of money at stake in people's livelihoods. So I had to behave myself, but I ended up being successful in those type of battles. And that's what really put me on the map in the city from an early age.
Why rap? What pulled you into those rooms? What made you want to start to share your voice in such a unique way?
I always loved the music from when I was younger. My parents always had records on at the house. It wasn't rap at that time, you know, but from like 3, 4, 5 years old, my dad loved Bruce Springsteen and Rod Stewart. And I just remember him playing the records and putting little pennies on the needle to weigh it down. And like those vivid memories are still in my head. And so when I started school, of course, my parents would have to go to work before school started. So I had to go to a babysitter's 2 doors down for that little hour or 2 hours before school started. And my babysitter had sons that were, I think 7 and 9 years older than me, 2 older boys, 7 and 9 years older than me. And they had this extensive music collection from rap to punk rock. And, you know, at 5 years old, hearing Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg, I think that was my first experience with rap. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, this is nothing like what my parents are listening to. I love this. And so I got into it that way. And I also like punk rock at the time, Green Day and Smashing Pumpkins they had, and all different sorts of music. And it just made me feel something I never felt before. It was such a rebellious energy. And I can remember I was listening to music that my older book buddies were not allowed to listen to. They're like, how do you have this tape in your Walkman? Like, my parents won't even let me listen to this. And they'd be in like grade 6 and I'd be in I was like grade primary. So yeah, I got introduced young and just fell in love with it. And it's been like that ever since.
Is there something, a catalyst that made you want to share your voice, that made you think like, I have something to say, I need to get my voice out and talk about this?
I have a bit of, I'm super competitive for one. So anything that I'm interested in, I dive into and I want to be the best at it. That's number one. I'm very competitive and I feel like there's nothing I can't do. And I always wanted to be the best at whatever I did, whether it was sports or music or any other avenue I got involved in. So naturally, I was like, I think I could do this. And then I think I don't know if I have OCD or not, but I was quite obsessive. Like when I would latch on to something, I would rehearse and study and practice to the point it was obsessive, and I just wanted to be the best. And I think that, that frame of mind helped me, you know?
One of the challenges I see from a previous generation now is this disconnect, because maybe there isn't super famous rappers in your own community that you can look to when you're growing up, in comparison to like Detroit or other locations where they have giant names where everybody's like, I want to be the next Eminem or Big Sean. There's those big names where everybody knows them. And it seems like you've helped kind of spawn and grow this industry within your own community. And I'm just curious as to what that meant to you, because the internet wasn't as big as it is now, where people are so connected and you can start and have your music go viral from small communities. And I'm just curious as to how that came about for you.
Yeah. That means a lot to me. That means everything to me. Like you said, there's not really too many I could look up to. One in particular was Classified, though. And so when I saw him making a living and actually, generating an income and a livelihood off doing what he loves, which is this music, it gave me hope. And I think that's super important. I think kids have to be able to see that it is possible. I think I read something one time, I forget the amount of time it was, but nobody ran a mile in under whatever the time was. Like no one ever did it. And then one guy did it. Then all of a sudden when he did it, a bunch of other people beat it. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I feel like us as humans, we have to see that it is possible to do something, or to get that inspiration to feel like we can actually do it, to feel like it is attainable. So if I can be that person for kids coming up and they can take it even a step further than I took it, then that's blessed. That's a blessing, man. It's evolution.
And that's where I think sometimes the universities get too much credit for creating students, because I would say you're a student of the game. You're always studying, learning, observing, and we don't give the same recognition, the same pride in people like yourself who are doing it behind the scenes and not taking as much credit for it, because it's not a formal institution. It's not an official title. But if we're talking about Classified, we have to talk about Small Talk. How did that song come about for you?
I mean, I've collabed with Class before, mostly on production, but there has been a few songs we did where other people were on, but we've never had one where it was just me and him. Never. Like it was always either like a bunch of other people on the song or a couple other people, or maybe part of a posse cut. And I felt it was time that, like, all right, I really need to do one with you, man. Like, I looked up to you all growing up. You were a big part of my influence in my younger years. So I was like, I think it's time. And I was honored that he did that with me. And I think that, I don't know, I think it was just such a natural conversation on the song. I'm so happy it turned out that way, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to just talk to him as a bigger brother, as a role model, and get his advice and bicker back and forth as brothers do in real time for the world to see. And I think we accomplished that.
I think that was one of the beautiful elements of it, is there was a conversation taking place that I think happens so often behind the scenes, but we don't actually get to see people reflecting on how to grow and how to look at things, because when you're coming up, it can be a challenge and you can feel like, why, like, who's supporting me? What's going on? And being able to have that conversation of like, you got to stick to it. You got to keep pushing forward, despite what everybody else is saying, you can do this. And that's really what came through in that song.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That was the main objective. So I had this other song that he agreed to get on for that album, and he was gonna. It would have ended up being that, and then at the last minute, I was like, you know what? I have this other idea. What do you think of this? And he loved it, and it took us a while to finish that song. Like I think it took probably 6 sessions at his spot, and then even when I wasn't at his spot, we were still going back and forth from sending shit back and forth, and a lot went into that one. That's probably the song I worked on the longest in my entire career.
Wow.
Yeah.
We also need to talk about Way Up, because it's gone very well on YouTube. It's hit a lot of people, and there's one line in particular that stands out to me, but I'm just curious as to how that song sort of came about for you.
Yeah, so that song came about, honestly, I just heard the beat, and I heard the beat off my phone. Matty Galaxy and my boy Big Joe, they sent me the beat, and I heard it. Sometimes when I get beats, I'll listen off my phone, and then if it passes the phone test, I'll go put it on my real speakers. But this day I was like upstairs, my studio's downstairs, and I heard this beat on my phone. I'm like, man, this is different. Like, I stood up out of my seat. I'm like, this is something. And yeah, so I went downstairs, and I don't know what I was listening to at the time. I can't remember. It might have been something Travis Scott or something. I think it was like his ad lib. I heard straight up, and I was like, I just started saying way up. I dragged it out a little more than his one, and then I just started saying way up. And then I was like, okay, there's so many things that relate to way up. Like, I'm way up, like, I'm way up. There's a lot of possibilities for metaphors and similes when you just use that phrase. So that's what I did. I just put my own spin to it. And then I had one verse and the hook for the longest time ever. And I was like, man, this needs somebody, like a big feature. And I put it on my Instagram story. I was like, who do you hear on this? Let me know. Just a little clip. And then Snak the Rapper hit me up, like, probably within like 2 minutes of the story being up. He goes, take this story down. I got you. And I was like, all right, cool. Say less. Let's get it. And then he did his verse super quick. And I remember him putting something on his story, like he hasn't been this inspired with a song being sent to him in a while or something. So he was like genuinely into it. And then the rest was history, man. I went on tour across Canada with him, performed it every night, went out there, shot a video with him. And it was the start of a beautiful song and a dope friendship, man. So
That's so cool. You have one verse in there. I don't see nobody watching. Do it big and make my moves in silence. Worked like Puff till I got puffy eyelids. Up all night because I just trust the process. There's this inherent work ethic that you have of going behind the scenes, not looking for recognition of all the effort you're putting into these songs. And I think that's so important because the greats do it all behind the scenes. And then you see this finished product that's just incredible. And we'll never really understand all the work that went in behind the scenes. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I want to break that down because I feel like this line might have went over a little head. So what you just said is very true, but there's also another layer to those lines. So Biggie said Bad Boys Move in Silence. Bad Boy is the record label, so I do it big. What I say, I don't see nobody watching. Do it big, and I just move in silence. And then up all night, work till I got puffy eyelids. Puffy alludes to, Puff Daddy, Puffy. Yeah. So Bad Boys, big, puffy, just some little hidden wordplay in there for people who might not have caught that one. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's everything. Work ethic is everything. And I've seen it time and time again where hard work beats talent pretty much every time. There's so many people I've seen in all avenues, whether it comes from music or sports, that have the most naturally gifted talent in the world. But usually, well, not all the time, but usually when people have that talent and it comes easy to them, they never have to put in the work, so they don't become used to doing the work, so everything comes easy, so they fizzle off in the end. See, someone like me, I had a little bit of talent in the beginning, but I wasn't always the most naturally gifted. So I learned how to have a work ethic. I learned how to have that hunger to want to get better. And yeah, basically that's kept me going my entire career, I think.
I think that's beautiful. And you also have talked about this, bringing back this classic essence of hip hop. And I think when I found you, that's what I felt, was that there's this renaissance taking place of going back to some of the names you were describing. And I'm just interested in, your style is very unique in comparison to some people who are more just about the verses and the lines and an upbeat sound. Like, you've got some of that more classic sound. And I'm just curious as to how you've been influenced by other generations of rappers.
Man, like you said before in the interview, I'm a student of the game, and rappers when I was growing up was like, it was different, man. Like, they were literally like our religion, like our superheroes, and we had favorite rappers. Whereas now, I think kids now mostly like songs, like different songs. Like, I like that song from this guy or that song because it's the playlist era. but I'm from the era of, we had the tape, and you might not have listened to another tape for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, a year sometimes. And so I think that just made it so that we had more appreciation for the artists. Like, we had favorite artists, they weren't disposable. They weren't hot one day and then, oh, he's not cool anymore the next. And there wasn't as many. So it wasn't like things get lost in the shuffle, and there wasn't as many choices to choose from. So I think that just me having that fandom and having that looking up to these guys, it really shaped who I was as a man, and it stuck with me the entire way through.
I think that's so important because we lose that connection and then we don't understand the lyrics as you just described as thoughtfully, because when it's just about the next song and the next line, we don't have that same connection to the depths and the connections that your songs can make when you make a new song and you reference the old song and all of these things. I think there's a beauty in the connection that you make with an artist.
Of course there is. And it's, like you said, it's a beautiful thing. And I think it still exists today. Like, I think we are also, on the other hand, quick to say, well, it's not the way it used to be. Like, I think there's tons of great music, and there's tons of artists I see making a strong connection with their fans and building their fan bases and doing it independently. It all exists. You just got to mine for it. So you can find whatever it is that you're into. You just got to mine for it these days. It's all out there,
Absolutely. Hailey's Comet is another one that I think is elegant because it has this connection to a bigger idea, obviously Hailey's Comet, and you have this line here, look, I still have my firstborn, but when he gets here, I'm going to show him how to work for it. I'm going to teach him that happiness is within. If you're checking underneath the skin, you ain't really got to search for it. Ain't no greater gift than the present. You got to cherish this very moment. It only happens once in a lifetime. Hailey's Comet.
Mm-hmm.
How did this song come about? How did you get inspired by Hailey's Comet?
I think it I think that Hailey's Comet means being present. Like, like this second, me talking to you, this very second happens once in a lifetime, then it's gone. I'm never going to get that second back. And I think I was learning how to become more present, because they say that anxiety is worry about the future and depression is worry about the past. And when you come to just be more present, the mind is free, the mind is relaxed. And I think that's basically just what I was trying to say. Was I was sick of searching for happiness in all these external places and external validation. And if this comment says my shit is good, it's good. And if this, I wanted to end all of that and just look within and find the happiness from within. And I think that was my point. And I think the way to achieve that is being more present and stop worrying about the past and worrying about the future, and just be present and take life as it comes, because each moment only happens once in a lifetime. Hailey's Comet,
How did you connect with the idea of Hailey's Comet? Were you watching the news? Because you tie in an actual news broadcast about Hailey's Comet in your song, which again, I think is just so beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I don't know how that exactly came about. I think I just had like the once in a lifetime thing. And then I was like, it's just like a puzzle. I'm like, okay, what's a metaphor what's something that happens once in a lifetime that's a beautiful moment and that brings light, and it just came to me, and that's how the artist brain works, I guess. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle and it's a beautiful thing that's just inexplicable.
Yes, and you also in that song talk about raising your firstborn and the ethics and the values you want to teach them. And I think you've got a really adorable video on your YouTube of you guys going back and forth, I think, over this this pop stick or this food. And I'm curious as to the ethics you're trying to raise your child with. Yeah,
that's actually, I'm a step parent. So I still don't have my biological firstborn, but yeah, man, I started dating a really lovely girl, and she has a little daughter, and it's honestly changed my life. It's changed my life a lot, and I learned so much from that little girl. It's incredible. It's like I don't know, man. It's so inexplicable. It's like when a kid, just the way from observing a kid, you learn from your own mistakes in a weird way. Somehow it's like a mirror, holding a mirror up, and when the kid makes you feel a certain way, you're like, oh man, maybe that's how I made my mom feel when I did that, when I misbehaved. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know, it's such a beautiful thing, and it's taught me so much. But all I can really do is hope to be a positive role model and teach her that to be a good person and to be driven and motivated and treat others with respect and love and kindness, you know?
Incredible. One of my favorite songs by you is I'm Fine, because I think it hits on a really important piece that people go through when they're creators, which is this drive behind the scenes, but there's doubt mixed in with that. And I'm just curious as to what inspired that song.
I just, everything was on its head. The whole entire world was upside down. We were in the middle of this pandemic. Mental health was down. Everyone was drinking. Everyone was out of shape, eating terrible, staying in their homes. And I think it was a lot on a lot of people. And, you know, what is the first thing somebody says who is not doing so well when you ask them, how are you doing? Are you okay? Usually they say, I'm fine. I'm fine. So that was my idea behind the song, is like, you know, I'm fine, when really everything is not fine. It's oftentimes the opposite, you know?
Yeah. Can you talk about the lyrics? I love being the underdog, counted out and slept upon. I thrive when the pressure's on. So right about now, I'm extra on. I think that again, just goes to this idea of being the underdog and being willing to own that and put in the work and prove yourself, not based on any one talent or skill, but based on the dedication.
Yeah, I think, again, it just comes from me being competitive, and I want to prove people wrong. I want to do everything you said I couldn't do. And I'm kind of like petty and spiteful sometimes too. Like, yo, I want to do this just to prove you wrong. You know, that's my fuel, that's my fire. And a lot of times that is some of my inspiration. A lot of my best music, sometimes I write with a chip on my shoulder, or anger, or any strong emotion for that matter. My music is used as a therapy for me. That's my outlet. And so anytime I have an emotion on my chest, my music helps me get it off my chest. So it's competitive, it's emotional, it's emotionally driven, and yeah, that's what it is, man.
I love it, because the other line was, I learned to master the pain. I learned to cope with defeat, birthed in the ash and the rain. And I came back and on that day and rose to my feet. And I think rising above those things and trying to reach whatever your full potential is. And I regularly say this, but I think at a certain point we stop telling people that they could reach their full potential, that there is something more in them that they need to bring out for all of our benefit, so we can learn from them, so we can be inspired by them. And I think that was one of the messages in that line.
I think the way to do that is to tell people that to embrace failure and to fail forward, because we're so scared to fail because we're in such of an internet era. We're scared to put something out and for it not to work because of judgment, what other people are going to think. And it terrifies us, and it almost stops us from trying. But the thing we're overlooking is that every loss or everything you do that doesn't work is actually a lesson on what not to do next time. So me, I've learned to embrace my failures, and it's much like the Phoenix. The Phoenix had to crash and burn before it could soar again. And I think that's a strong message. And I think that in life, you have to fail. There's not one successful person walking this earth who just had a straight line to success without failure. It's not how it works. What do they say? Calm waters do not make skilled sailors, or whatever that quote is. You know, you need the waves to be choppy in order to learn that skill on how to be a good sailor. And I think that's the same in life. You need bumps in the road, and success is not linear. So it's cool to fail forward because you're actually learning.
I love that, because the one that I always think of is that trees only get stronger by facing strong winds. Their roots only go deeper when they experience that. And I think so often we forget that. So often we see the person when they've reached the pinnacle, when they've reached success, and we go, well, it only made sense that they were going to get there. And they don't see all the moments of doubt that preceded that.
No, they don't. So there's a clip I like from Nipsey Hussle, and he's like, I felt every single emotion you could imagine. And the only genius thing I did was keep going and not quit. That's the only distinguishable feature that he did from everyone else that didn't make it, was he just didn't quit and kept going. And I think it's true. And I think a lot of times when you look inside, you're closer to where you're going than from where you started. So the only thing to do is keep going. because it's a longer way to go back, turn around and walk back, you know?
Man, you are motivational. I also have to ask about your recent single, Try, because that whole piece, that whole project looks fantastic. You highlight Halifax, you highlight some of the cool spots, the beauty, the elegance, I think, of like the rawness of the community, the real look of it. You weren't looking for just the glamorous water shots or anything like that. You really connected us with the area, the region.
That was actually shot in Hamilton, believe it or not.
Okay.
Yeah. So we shot that. A friend of mine who passed away, Pat Stay, rest in peace. We're up in Toronto for a battle rap event that the proceeds were going to his family, and I had this song, and ETG, who is from out west as well, from BC, he was in town and he knew I had this song because I showed it to him, and he's like, "Let's try to shoot something." So really, we had no plan for this video, no treatment written. Neither of us have been to Hamilton before. That just happened to be where he was staying because his cousin lives there. So there we were. He's like, "Can you meet me in Hamilton?" I went to Hamilton, and I think we had like 3 days to do it. But out of those 3 days, we had like 2 or 3 hour windows. So we were pretty much just like driving around. Like the day of, we found that house. It was one of his cousins. Like, "Yo, can we use your house?" And then things just started lining up. Like when the train goes by, that was not planned. Like nothing in that video was planned. But I think that Hamilton was the perfect city for that song, to capture that song. And I'd never been there before, but it was I don't know, everything just lined up. Sometimes the stars align and there's no explanation for it.
It seems like a really healing song, like you were processing some heavy thoughts, and I'm just curious about that.
Yeah. So the song's not necessarily about me. When we created it, I was going through a lot of stuff. Like I said, losing my best friend tragically, losing a relationship that, with the girl I thought I was going to marry at the time. And so I was going through a lot, and we were in the studio in New York when that came about. And there was a girl in the studio who was friends with the producer, actually, who was doing it. And we didn't really have any idea. He was just playing this guitar thing. And she started telling me her story about how she's faced depression and addiction, and she was going through a lot. And, I was comforting her and telling her, I'm going through a lot too. I lost my best friend, broke up with my girl. And we had this beautiful, like, hour-long conversation going back and forth. And you know what? As the conversation was going and that guitar was playing, as soon as we stopped that conversation, that's when I pretty much wrote the entire song pretty quickly. Like, I would say probably like half an hour, whole entire song, yeah. And just because the emotion was so fresh from that conversation, it really inspired the entire song.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
The other thing you do really well are these food reviews. You're, again, showing that shining light on great local places. Yes. I'm wondering how that came about for you.
Honestly, they came about, they started in New York. I was in New York for like 2 months, 2 months just recording and working on this project. And I had my cameraman there with me to shoot behind the scenes content. And I mean, there's only so much in studio you can do. Like me standing in front of a mic rapping, like how many shots of that can we get? So we had this idea, because I'm a big foodie. We started trying all these different food places. And I'm like, yo, what if we filmed this and reviewed it and just made it funny and people might like it. And then I started doing that in New York and people started liking it. But then it started really catching on when I started doing it locally. When I started doing it in Halifax, the numbers seemed to go up because I think it was that people, the audience, could actually go try these places and there was more of a communal connection with it. So it's great, man. We've done a lot of places. Some of the business owners have said we've helped their business tremendously since we've been in there. Like one place, Kelly's Deli, said their business was up like 40%. It's been flat out since we were in there. And I love hearing stuff like that. Like, it just means a lot to me, man. It's like, people get to see my personality and keep my name fresh in their ears. And I'm helping local business at the same time. I mean, it's a win-win, and I think it's just a fun thing to do. It's another form of expression,
I think that that's great because I hear so many rappers and artists talk about how they're so honed in on their music that they start to lose a love of it because it's everything they do all day, every day, that there's no zooming out. And this is just an opportunity to do something else, to mix it up and stay creative.
1,000%. I don't make music every day. I don't. I make music. I don't know if this is right or wrong. I'm just telling you my process, but my music is when I have something to say. I can't just go. There's been so many times where I'll go and listen to beats for 8 hours and try little things and I'm just forcing it like I have nothing really important to say and it doesn't work. But when I actually have an idea or something I need to get off my chest, it happens fairly quickly because it's natural to me. And then I learned, in my process, I don't need to force myself to make music every single day. And another thing for artists, up and coming artists watching, if people get a chance to see your personality, because I know like a lot of people do the mysterious thing these days, which is cool if that's you, that's your thing, do the mysterious thing. But if you have a personality and you're funny and you think people would like your personality, that's a way for people to go and start messing with your music too. Because there's been countless times where people, I don't like their music necessarily or I don't check for it. And I'll see their interview and be like, damn, like that guy had some smart shit to say, or that guy was a really cool, funny guy. And it makes me go then check out their music. So I think it all ties back. At the end of the day, you're a brand as an artist, and things that make sense with your brand to work together, I think creatively put all those things together and package it into one brand. That's what I'm trying to do.
That's brilliant, because I think it's important that you're having fun when you're doing this, because there's going to be tough days, discouraging days. It does sound like you have something on the horizon, a new project coming soon. Are you able to talk about that at all?
Yeah. So my new project is called The Dark Room. It's an EP, 7 songs. It's the most personal, heartfelt, introspective music I've ever made in my entire life. As I said, 2022 was a difficult year, losing my brother tragically, losing the girl that I thought I was going to marry. And, even the pandemic was still weighing. Everything was all coming to a head. And I let it all out in the music. And I think it's going to move a lot of people. I think a lot of people are going to be going through similar things. And I think a lot of people are going to relate to what I'm talking about on this project. So I can't wait for everyone to hear it.
I can't wait to hear it. I can't wait to tune into those songs. Quake, thank you so much for sitting down today. This has been such a pleasure. You have such insightful thoughts. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners with?
Say, man, just go out there and do the best you can every day. Be you, do you. We got one life. Live it. Enjoy yourself. That's it. Be nice to each other, God damn it. There's enough hate in the world.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you again so much for doing this.
Hey, salute. I appreciate it.
We did it.
We did it. Yep.
What'd you learn?
I'm always fascinated because you are tapping into people I've never heard of. So I'm getting at least used to, I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to search for Quake. And I did watch one video, try one, and I thought it was, okay, this is really cool. And you're right, it has more of a nostalgic feel than some of the other folks that you've put in. I've been to Halifax a few times. I love it there.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Go lower deck.
Lower deck. What does that mean?
It's a particular waterfront area with amazing food.
Yeah, he seems to be very proud of the food, and that makes me interested because I love when people do it and it feels natural and you're having fun with it.
So no other genre that I know of between rap and hip hop, people have pseudonyms. Do you know how and when that started or why that is?
I don't know why that is, but it's definitely been since the beginning. And I agree, in my opinion, with Vin J that I do think that in a lot of ways, rappers are the new prophets. And so they don't, when they're talking, it's not them. It's often like the message that they're trying to share. And I hear and listen to a lot of rappers actually struggle with it because one of the people who's actually coming here at the end of April, Echo, he talks about how, like, I don't think people would love me, would enjoy my music, would care about what I have to say if I said I'm Jeff Thompson. Like, I don't think that they would have that connection. And so for whatever reason, it's almost like their alter ego, and definitely Eminem influenced that by going from Marshall Mathers to Eminem and then having Slim Shady and putting that hat on, and you getting a different vibe when you hear that. But certainly other artists have done that over the years.
Yeah, that's interesting because it seems, and not being an expert in this genre whatsoever, that much of it is autobiographical.
Yeah.
Easy for me to say. And yet they use a pseudonym, and maybe it's easier to tell those stories under that guise. I don't know.
I do notice that more and more artists outside of it are starting to move in that direction. Like, I interviewed an Indigenous lady, Alia, and she switched that to being her title on her music. And so I think it's just owning whatever state you're in, because the weird thing is, like, when Justin Clancy talks about, like, the music comes from somewhere and he's just channeling the energy, that trips me out for days. Carrie Lynn talking about how she sees these images in 3D landscapes, and then she goes and tries to put it into a 2D medium. It was like, where does it come from? And she was like, the creator, like the source of all sources. And it's like, what does that mean? From a logical, legal perspective, that is like incomprehensible to my brain. And so I think that may be where it's coming from.
Yeah, I think you're also describing dreams to a point. Like, where does that come from, right? So, yeah, but it is some sort of inspirational thing that's going on in your brain, I think. I don't know.
I find it really inspiring. I don't have it. I'm able to ask people questions about where it comes from for them. That's my skill set for sure.
Cool. Another great interview.
Thank you. As always, go subscribe on the Substack newsletter, subscribe on YouTube, rate it on Apple Podcasts, and share it with your friends. That definitely makes the biggest difference when somebody gives their own, I like this podcast, you should go check it out. That's more than Twitter advertising could ever do, or any other form of marketing. It's that word of mouth kind of spread.